Hey, it's Colleen with Rope and Resellers, and I'm here for another weekly What's It Worth video. So this week I went to a Goodwill, not in my normal town, but kind of close by. One of my favorites. I seem to always find something. And I looked through a couple things and I found stuff that I wanted to see what it was worth. What intrigued me the most were when I went across to the kids section against the wall. Oftentimes they have those peg boards and they have the little things sticking out in the little plastic bags. So what I saw in those plastic bags, in one of them, and I'm sorry if this makes a lot of crinkling noise, I'm trying not to, was a bag of vintage Tommy PVC figures that are Pokemon. So there's Pikachu, the most famous one, and there's a whole bag of them. And then I started looking around at some of the other bags. I mean, they had a big wall of all of these things. I want to say there were 40 or 50 bags. And oftentimes, you know, these are $2, and I think my local Goodwill charges the same. And they're wrapped up in a little plastic bag, and you think, oh, they're just a bunch of junk for little kids to play with. And oftentimes they are. Sometimes you can look and there are vintage things. So this bag, I did a little bit of research, and just really quick, I knew that they were worth something, that people had lotted these together and were getting $50. I think if I break them apart, I could probably get like 40 bucks. So I'm not going to dive deep into what's valuable, but basically what I knew was someone had donated a box, because then I started looking around and seeing other things that were of this era. So this is probably 80s, 90s. Probably 90s, and so I knew that there were going to be other toys that were probably from that era. So I did look around, and I'll tell you in a minute what I left behind. And now I'm just kicking myself, but it's 2.5 hours away, so I'm not going back. But the other bag I got was this bag, and it had a bunch of Matchbox in it, but I knew that they were vintage Matchbox. So quickly, because this was the biggest thing that was in there, I just looked this one up. So this is Team Matchbook, and I found one really quick, and it was $27, and I thought, well, that'll cover the $2, so I may as well just get it just for this one. Doing a little more research, this actually comes with a Formula One car, which is also in the bag that I got, and it's a racing transporter car, and those are actually worth some money. So vintage Matchbox, this is, yeah, so this is Lesney. So I knew, made in England, that these were probably not going to be duds. So the other thing that really attracted me to this bag was, if you watch my videos over Halloween, I had a costume that was a racer guy from the 80s, I think, or 70s. Most of these cars are from the 70s. So I think maybe it was from the 70s. But on the side, it was, I think his name was Kelly, or they had funny names. And there's a funny little guy in this car. So I was like, I wonder if that's related to those popular items that I found a costume for and sold for like 70 bucks or something at Halloween. And this is a flying bug. Unfortunately, it's missing its little tail fin, so it's not worth as much, but you know, 10 bucks each, and this is a pipeline. So these are all worth, the other ones that are in here, this is missing a ladder, so this isn't worth as much, but it's in good condition. So I can get like 10 bucks a piece. So all told, I think this $2 bag is probably going to be worth somewhere in the $80 to $90 range. So that's pretty awesome. Now the one that I left behind, and I'll show you an example of it, are actually Happy Meals. So you can find Happy Meals in those things. You can find vintage flatware in those bags in the home section. They put stamps in those things. So what I guess I'm saying is, what it's worth, we don't know until we go and look. If it looks generic, then it's probably not worth it. But a lot of times you probably just walk by that wall, and there's lots and lots of treasure to be found in those bags. So that's what I'm giving you a tip on this week, is to go look through those bags, see if you see something vintage, and then look around and see if there's more. Because I knew once I saw those Pokemon, there are probably going to be older toys as well from the 90s and 80s, and that's what's kind of popular. There were even some from the 70s. So this was some kid's lifetime lot of Happy Meal toys and Pokemon. There were other little toys that I didn't have the time. I had my kids sitting in the car waiting for me that wanted to go eat pizza, so I kind of had to get going. But so it was, the thing that I saw in there that I wish I had grabbed was Transformer Happy Meal, like they were Happy Meal toys that when Transformers were popular in the 80s, and they were hamburgers that change into other items. So instead of me trying to describe this verbally, let's go over and take a look at the computer and I'll show you what I mean. Here are the little hamburgers, and they're little Transformers, and I didn't think anything of them. I thought, who wants these McDonald's toys that are Transformers? Not really thinking through what I just told you, that it probably is vintage and that may have value. So this sold for $150. This is a complete set, but the hamburger, the French fries, I didn't see the Happy Meal. I did see the ice cream. And I don't remember if I saw the coffee mug, but there were quite a few in there. These change into little critters. So now I'm kicking myself that I didn't buy those, because even a smaller lot of these, now this also came with some other Looney Tunes figures as well. So that's why this went for so much. Not that that's the case, but you can just look up Happy Meal food Transformer, and I'm sure that you can see lots of lots that have sold with these vintage hamburgers in it. So that's the thing that I'm talking about that I missed and didn't really catch. So I did well with the two things I did buy. Okay, so other things you might find you think Happy Meals aren't worth anything, these Happy Meal toys. So all I did on this was type in vintage McDonald's toys. I didn't even type in Happy Meals. So for a while they gave out these little, they look so generic. I think there's planes, but the really, really early toys are worth money. And sometimes mom or the kids are just like, oh, I remember these things, or, you know, caretaker, whoever's taking care of it, and they just donate it to Goodwill. And they're just getting rid of this big box of plastic toys that the kids had. So there's value in these little toys. And so you'll find those in the bags as well. Here's another thing that you can look for are Littlest Pet Shop. So there are these little dogs and cats and frogs and geckos and stuff, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of Littlest Pet Shop, but if you see a dachshund or a cocker spaniel, so this little dog, collies that are worth a lot. So the dogs and some of the cats are worth quite a bit of money. Now these were best offers. So they went between $173 and $145, but you can see that there's a bag of these, that people collect these. My Little Pony's another one that I see a lot in those little kid bags. So if they're older, go ahead and grab them. And a lot of times, you know, I feel sort of bad taking toys away from the kids, but these are not things that they can relate to. They would rather have the shows that are popular on Disney at the moment, you know, the Paw Patrol, stuff like that. I try not to feel too bad about taking these away from kids, especially if they're worth a lot and the kids are just going to trash them. Okay, another thing I see sometimes are little Transformer toys. They make little ones. If they're vintage, they're Generation 1, G1. These are cassettes. So if you see a little cassette tape, but they've got some weird looking folds in them. Let's see if I can get a better close-up. So I didn't even know that these were worth a lot of money, but some of them are if they're complete. So here's a picture of the cassettes, and they just look like little cassette toys, and they're probably 2 inches across. They're really not all that big, 2 or 3 inches, and they transform into little monsters, so, or robots or whatever. And so sometimes you'll see those in the bags, and then as well as other Transformers. Okay, so you might see just bits and pieces and parts of Transformers. Here's a huge lot, and sometimes they'll just dump the whole thing, and they'll have little weapons or little arms or whatever, and they're broken. I mean, you can find these things at garage sale too, but these are famous for being in those bags at Goodwill or Savers, whatever. A lot of the thrift stores go this route with the plastic bags hanging on pegboards. So even these little guns and stuff are worth money. So it's worth it. There's the logo that you're kind of looking for, that G1 logo with Transformers. So these are from the 80s. Another thing that I saw in there that I wish I had grabbed, there were actually Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I know about these because when I went to Japan and I did research, I found out that these were worth quite a bit. These all have their helmets, so they're worth a little bit more, and they have their guns. So this is a pretty valuable pack, but even just one of these would more than pay for that $2 bag that you pick up. And moving over to housewares, sometimes you see those bags and they're hanging and you're like, oh, I don't really know. A lot of times you'll see mid-century flatware, and, you know, they're not worth a ton. and you think, oh, they're mismatched, they're not a complete set. But here's kind of, well, this is a complete set, but even just a mishmash of them can get you $30. So 2 into 30, I'll do that all day long. So these have, they're called Canoe Muffin. They're wood-handled, mid-century, modern Echo. I mean, go figure. This is a very generic brand, but people want them, and you'll find them in the plastic bags for $2. So, and the last thing I'm just going to point out is sometimes you see bags and bags, or what I often see are bags and bags of rubber stamps. If you can lot them up, if there's like a theme going inside of there, either horses, or you know that they say Stampin' Up or Stampendous, there's a couple brands that are worth a little bit more. So, you know, you can make 20, 25 bucks off that $2, and it's pretty easy. So don't overlook those bags. I think a lot of people think that there's nothing but junk in them and they're just trying to get rid of them. And I'm going to say 98% of them are. But if you see one that is valuable, always look for other ones that could be worth money too, because a lot of times these workers don't know that vintage McDonald's toys or old silverware is worth anything. So they'll just lot them up in those cheap bags and sell them. I've also found vintage electronics. So you can look in the back in the electronics section. Mice, Apple mice, I've showed that to you. I had a couple sell last week. Any Apple product, and they're almost always white, and they have an apple on them, but they will always have an A number, an A followed by 4 or 5 numbers. And that is a clue, and that makes it really easy to look up super quick. And just because something's worth $20, I would rather take a fast $20 flip on a $1 or $2 item than, you know, spend $20 and hope for that $200 item. So it's good to have those fillers. So these are all ideas for getting like quick flip filler type stuff. And I've also found Sony headphones are usually in those bags in the electronics section. TomToms, some TomToms, and Garmin, the portable map devices. Those also I have found in the plastic bags, and those are worth looking up. Not all of those are going to be worth money, so it's going to take you a little time until you get to know kind of which ones are worth more. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go to your local thrift stores and look through the plastic bags and see if you can find treasure in them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and go ahead and leave a comment down below. We'll see you on Monday.